Tony Livesey
on BBC Radio 5 Live.
Now, I knew I shouldn't have got involved with trumpet matters.
You made yourself look a fool, haven't you?
I myself.
Look a right
and that's even without dressing as a Viking.
Yeah. So we've had a few... Do you want to read them?
No, you read them. Go on.
Angela in Bedfordshire. Well, we can ask Joe about this. A trumpet voluntary is a solo piece played on a trumpet. The one you played is a voluntary by Jeremiah Clarke. There are others.
Yes.
Simon, who's a trumpet player,
that's ominous.
He should
put
know
that on the text. Yeah.
He's gonna have you know. You posted Prince. You played, I guess he means Prince of Denmark's March by Jeremiah Clarke, and not Trumpet Voluntary by Purcell. Easily mixed up. He's letting you off lightly there.
Yeah. Well, especially as I didn't get it. So this is a trumpet voluntary, then it turns out, not the trumpet voluntary.
Yeah, it's Prince of Denmark's, the Prince of Denmark's March by Jeremiah Clarke. So, would you like to apologise to the nation?
No,
and me.
Simon is blaming. Say again, who you're blaming? Let's name check them. The BBC Sound Library is one, and the album Classical Bestsellers as well is being thrown under the bus right now.
So are you now blaming Simon, our studio manager, rather than taking the blame yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm just a cog in the machine. But yeah, thank you anyway to Simon, the trumpet player, and Angela in Bedfordshire, we've had a bigger postbag tonight than most nights, all about trumpet music.
Yeah.
Well, and that is why, because always on a Tuesday or technically just into Wednesday, it's time for one of the greatest hours of radio of the week. It's Musicologist time, where we take a deep dive into what's made music great over the years. Tonight, as you can probably tell, the mighty trumpet is getting a run out as we're analysing some great trumpet songs from across the decades. Let's welcome our very own Dr. Beat, better known to his students as Professor Joe Bennett from the Berklee College of Music in Boston. Welcome, Joe.
Hey there, Tony. Good to speak to you.
Yes. Do you play the trumpet, Joe? You play everything else?
I played the cornet in secondary school back in the day. Third cornet, I was really bad cornet player, and I used to sort of sneak off from my cornet practice to write songs with the electric guitar, which was more fun at the time.
Okay.
But I got to say, kudos to the listeners there. Angela pointing out, because actually that classic comment that people make, the trumpet voluntary, aka the royal wedding music, which is actually described as by Henry Purcell. It wasn't. It was, as Angela said, by Jeremiah Clarke. But that era lasted something like 300 years. People were misattributing it to Purcell for centuries.
Ignoramuses of all of them.
It's a really common thing. People think it's Purcell. And it was indeed the royal wedding music, absolutely.
Most of your jokes are about 300 years old.
Hey, good point, well made. Right, well, look, so that's my knowledge of trumpets. You could roll up and fit in a trumpet. So we'll go to your tunes shortly, Joe. Actually, let's start with the quiz. So here we go. So this is the first trumpet music backwards. What are you going to play for us on the quiz?
Okay, so we're going to be doing all massive hits. Everything is a top 10 hit or equivalent. You get 1 point for the song, 1 point for the artist. I will give you the year. I'm going to play you for the question. I'm going to play you the trumpety bit, the trumpetiest bit, if that is indeed an adjective. And I'm going to play it backwards to disguise it, because, as I say, these are all super well-known songs. And our earliest example is from 1967, and our most recent one from 2015. So strap in, listen to the trumpets. This is number one from 1967. What's the name of the song? What's the artist? That is a really short one. I should have edited that one longer. I'll give you that one again. Number one from 1967. Listen to the melody. Sing it backwards in your head. Do 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 do. Backwards.
Yeah.
For the second one, this is I'm going to say it's the equivalent of a hit, and when I reveal the answer, the reason for that will be clear. Very famous melody, and it is in 3/4 time, and it came out in 1972. For number 3, this is a trumpet sort of disguised with a whole bunch of synths. The song came out in 1984, and it's very 1984 production. So here's a trumpety bit of that. For number 4, this is a up-tempo pop hit from 2005. Here's the trumpet bit.
Yes, I don't know that at all, but it's just vaguely familiar in my ear holes, so I recognise it.
Okay. Number 5, it's not, there's a clue here, it's not a single trumpet you're hearing here. It's trumpets. It's more than one. And for number 5, this bit of in-your-face pop came out in 2015. Sorry, I misspoke. This is number 6. This came out in 2015. So that you have to sing that back the other way. I won't sing it. So there we have 6 questions, 1 for the artist, 1 for the song, total of 12 points available.
Okay, good stuff. Right, well, get your thinking caps on. Regular listeners will know, but if you've not listened to this hour before, we will recap those before the end of the programme so you can have another go at it. Right, let's start then. Let's get straight into the trumpet music, which I think is going to be hugely popular tonight based on what we've heard so far. We're going all the way back to 1928. Joe, with your first choice. Let's take a listen to Louis Armstrong and his Hot 5 and West End Blues. Lovely. 1928, Louis Armstrong, West End Blues. Somebody actually texted that suggestion in earlier on because I've got it on my magic machine here, Joe, and I never got round to playing that.
Oh, it's a great track. And what a wonderful recording. You know, nearly 100 years old, that recording, and you still feel like you're there in the room with them. It's amazing.
Tell us the story of it then.
Yeah, so it is indeed a blues. It's a 12-bar blues, and we hear Armstrong's theme, pulls up sampler, you know that. And so he basically plays what a jazzer would call the head. That's the main theme. And Louis Armstrong cast a huge shadow over jazz. I mean, he was. It's impossible to overstate his contribution and his influence. But that was a simple 12-bar blues. It was written in 1928 by Joe King Oliver, and Armstrong and the Hot Five weren't the first people to record it. It was originally recorded by King Oliver and his Dixie Syncopators, great name. But that was what I really love about that recording is that you can hear the recording technology of the time. So at that time, 1928, it was the early days of condenser microphones. And the only way you could mix the track, because they just have one microphone in the room, is you position the band in the room with the, the things that are too loud further away so you don't overload the mix. And about 25 seconds into that excerpt, I don't know if people clocked it, there was a little sort of tick, 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 tick came in at the front of the mix. Well, that was drummer Zutty Singleton playing hand cymbals, because with the recording technology at the time, a loud kick drum and snare in the room would have compromised the wax cutting process or the cutting process with the needle as they were recording. So drummers in those early jazz combos often had to back off, in this case, to the point of leaving behind the drum kit altogether. But back to Armstrong's trumpet playing, the melodies front and center. It's all about that wonderful jazz tone that he has and his fantastic timing. He's really just, plays the melody and lets us enjoy it. And it was indeed, a single at the time. We heard that opening cadenza, which was that improvised bit of trumpet before the band comes in. And that's, something of a classic.
And so I know that the West End refers to a place in New Orleans, which was a summer resort with live music and dance pavilions and things like that, and lake bathing, which would have been fabulous to listen to that kind of music. But so just go back to that studio setup then, when recording technology at the time, Joe, it would have been one take from the band then. You couldn't overdub or just do the bass guitar and then come in with something. They just had to go for it in one go, did they?
Yeah, we didn't. There wasn't magnetic tape in that way as there was in the post-war years. So in the early days of recording, it would have been a new process in 1928, the new electrical recording process, as they called it there. So the band plays lives into microphones that feed a cutting stylus, and they engrave the performance directly into a wax disc in real time. From the wax disc, they made a metal plated master and used that to press shellac 78 RPM records, and that was the product that people would buy. So to get a recording that good, where you can really hear the nuances of what's going on in the mix and every instrument is clear, is a really remarkable technical achievement as well.
Brilliant. Right, we move on to another very famous trumpet player. Loads of people have name-checked this fella throughout the show, but the only one in front of my eyes at the moment is from B in Wolves, saying, I've just switched on, not sure if anyone's mentioned Miles Davis. Just listening to that, Joe, I thought that's been in every movie I've ever seen in my life. And I've had a look. The only one that I have watched that it was in was The Talented Mr. Ripley, but it just feels almost like a ready-made movie soundtrack, that.
Yeah, it's the sound of cool jazz. It really sets a scene, sets a mood, doesn't it? And, whenever I listen to the Kind of Blue album, I'm like, why don't we just put this whole thing on and just chill for the rest of the hour.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary music. It was actually his 12th album, would you believe, at that time, and it was, it's by some measures the best-selling jazz album of all time. Constantly wins polls of the most important jazz album of the 20th century. So you have Miles Davis there taking the head of the jazz tune on his trumpet, and the whole composition is something like. It's really short. It's something like 10 bars long, with various repeats. That da 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 dum da dum. It's got that sort of descending theme at the top. The thing that many people know about Miles Davis is he has this very distinctive sound which is the sound of the muted trumpet. So you could probably hear there on the recording, it's a thinner sound quite deliberately than the wider, sort of warmer Armstrong sound from 1928. And that's because he's using a Harmon mute, which is a bit of metal that you put in the bell of the trumpet. And really, it was his signature sound at the time, but since this album came out, you're absolutely right, Tony. That sound of the muted trumpet playing long, slow notes over languid jazz changes, piano, ride cymbal, brushed snare drum, upright bass. That sound is very much evocative of that era. It's become a sort of a cultural shorthand for late 50s cool.
Yeah, I feel as though I should listen to that album driving home tonight, letting the streetlights wash over my face as I drive through Ramsbottom. Just
give yourself a deep and moody voiceover.
Yeah.
Tony was behind the wheel. It was a rainy night.
Yeah, very evocative. Right, so that is Miles Davis. Fast forward now to 1981 and John Cale. Tell us a little bit more before we play it then about Dead or Alive.
Yeah, so John Cale, he of Velvet Underground fame, I think a lot of people who are aware of his work will think of it as quite experimental. This is him at his absolutely most commercial. It sounds like a slightly quirky mainstream 80s pop song. So it's taken from his 7th solo album, 1981, On y soit, which is an abbreviation of the French phrase On y soit qui mal y pense, which is a shame upon him who thinks evil of it, which is also the motto of the British Chivalric Order of the Garter, I learned. So it was his comeback. His previous album, Helen of Troy, was in 1975. The trumpet is a session player. It is the remarkable John Gatchell, who was really the go-to guy in New York, late 70s, early 80s for studio sessions. And he was actually also hand-selected by Paul Simon for the concert in Central Park. So he appears as the trumpet player there as well. It's suitably, it's only just weird enough to be John Cale, I would say, because this is really him trying to be mainstream, in my opinion.
Straight on and horn bound, but leave me out of it.
never heard that before at all. Joe, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's like I say, I think it's his attempt to be crowd pleasing. I don't know what was on his mind creatively when he went for that sound, because people who know his work with the Velvets will know that it's sort of way more experimental than that. But I just thought it's a slightly obscure pop track. It didn't do anything in the charts, but it fits our brief. It has a trumpet in it. It's an interesting trumpet melody, and it was. I wanted to get something from the 80s in there that wasn't too obvious.
Yeah, this next one. Earlier on, because we had so many suggestions for trumpet songs from our listeners, and I said none of you have got any of the ones Joe's chosen, and I now realise that what somebody did, because I touched on this earlier on, and there's quite a rich history to the ensemble behind this next piece of music. So we've already played a little bit, but we're going to play this next snatch now. This is El Cuarto de Tula, is that right, by the Buena Vista?
El Cuarto, yes, rolling the R a little bit in the Latin way. El Cuarto de Tula.
Yeah, by the Buena Vista Social Club.
Allí fueron los bomberos con sus campanas y sirenas. Ay, mamá, ¿qué pasó? Ay, mamá, ¿qué pasó? El cuarto de Tula le cogió candela, se quedó dormida y no apagó la vela. El cuarto de Tula le cogió candela, se quedó dormida y no apagó la vela. El cuarto de Tula le cogió candela, se quedó dormida y no apagó la vela. Que llamen a Ibrahim Ferrer, que busquen los bomberos, que yo creo que Tula lo que quiere, señores, que le apaguen el fuego. El cuarto de Tula le cogió candela.
I was saying that, yeah, we played that earlier on, Joe, or a different section of it anyway, and I was saying it's my bag. I was on a summer's day, out in the garden, Cuban jazz on the old player or whatever you call it, play Cuban jazz, and that's fantastic, and they come up a lot, the Buena Vista Social Club.
Oh yeah, and it's nice that the listeners who suggested a song from Buena Vista Social Club went for that one as well. Nice coincidence, and it's a great trumpet track. Fun fact: it begins, that little section we heard, which was about 120 into runtime, starts with last week's theme, an Andalusian cadence, dom 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 dom, A minor G F E. Let's grab a piano here. And then it goes da-da-da-da-da, and goes the relative major. But yeah, that was the first thing we heard. Sort of unintentional throwback to last week's show. But yeah, so Buena Vista Social Club, as a lot of people of a certain age will know, it was a Cuban musical ensemble formed in 1996. I mean, it was significant because of the sort of revival of that Cuban sound that it represented in the 90s. But also, of course, Cuba has a really fascinating and turbulent geopolitical history. So the original Buena Vista Social Club was a members-only social club founded in 1932. And at that time in Cuba, social clubs were racially segregated. So the Buena Vista Social Club functioned as a black society. So it has this history of cabildos, which is Afro-Cuban mutual aid fraternities, going back to the 19th century. And there was a government crackdown in the 50s on nightclubs, and the closures significantly affected musicians. So the sort of backlash to that was that the music tried to come out in the 60s and beyond, despite governmental controls of partying and related music. But of course, in the 90s, the documentary also came out, so people got introduced to this music in the wider world, outside Latin America, outside the USA. And, I was in the UK at that time, and I remember it being huge. My Spanish isn't great, 4 years of Duolingo, and it's still a little slow, Tony, but I've got to say, It's a really fun lyric. The title, El Cuarto de Tula, translates as Tula's bedroom. And the lyric of the chorus that you heard there is El Cuarto de Tula le cogió candela, which is Tula's room caught fire. Se quedó dormido y no apagó la vela. She fell asleep and didn't put out the candle. And then later in the song, we get Que llaman a los bomberos, call the firefighters. And it's it's slightly saucy. It's sort of the fire of passion and the fire of the burning bedroom put together. So it's a feel-good sound and a feel-good lyric with some sort of winky Spanish jokes in there.
I'm fortunate enough, Joe, to have been to. We mentioned New Orleans earlier, or Louis Armstrong, and I've been there. And on the same holiday, I was also staying in Havana. And the music in New Orleans is fabulous, but the music in Havana, Joe, I just found
I've never been.
I found it incredible. And you can just be sat in a bar and four people will wander in with the most basic instruments imaginable and set up a rhythm that we've just heard there. It's absolutely incredible to see and hear. It's so fortunate. It's beautiful stuff.
Yeah, and even though I live in the US now, so it's not as far to go, it's much more politically difficult than it was in previous American governments to get to Cuba. It's less open than it was 15 years ago. Well, so maybe it'll be a while before I get to have that same Havana experience that you did, Tony. I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah, I would recommend it. But when I went, the first Trump term had just ended, and actually the cruise ships were coming back from the States and things like that. Obviously, things have changed again now. It was an amazing trip. It was very, very fortunate. So I recommend Havana to anyone who can get there. Right. Next up, this must be the only show on the radio where you can go from Buena Vista Social Club to Jay-Z. Let's take a listen now to a tune, and I'm very pleased to say it says here, don't worry, we've checked, it's the clean version. So let's listen, because you wouldn't do that to us, Joe.
I wouldn't, absolutely not. We're very careful.
Get us shut down. How can you have a dirty trumpet? I don't know. Well, anyway, we'll find out. Let's take a listen to Encore.
Thank you, far too kind. Can I get an encore? Do you want more? Cook it with the Brooklyn boys. So for one last time, I need y'all to roar. Now what the hell are you waiting for? After me, there should be no more. So for one last time, make some noise. Who you know fresher than whole? Riddle me that. The rest of y'all know where I'm lyrically at. Can't none of y'all mirror me back. Yeah, hear me rap, it's like hand G rapping his prime. I'm young H.O., raps Grateful Dead. Back to take over the globe, now break bread. I'm in Boeing Jets, Global Express. Out the country, but the blueberries still connect. On the low, but the yacht got a triple deck. But when you young, what the respect? Yep. Grand opening, grand closing. Damn your manhole, crack the can open again. Who you gonna find open in him with no pen? Just draw off inspiration. Who you gonna see you can't replace him with cheap imitations from these generations? Can I get an encore? Do you want more? Cook him, the Brooklyn balls. So for one last time, I need y'all to roar. What the hell are you waiting for? Look what you made me do. Look what I made for you. Knew if I paid my dues, how will they pay you?
Jay-Z, 2003, from the Black Album. Tell us about this one then, Joe.
Yeah, so it's a great trumpet riff, which was obviously the reason for choosing it. So you've got that da 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 da. But this, it's a great record. It's a very feel-good record for Jay-Z. You know, it doesn't have a lot of bleakness in it, and I think that's partly down to that very cheerful trumpet sample. And fun fact, Lennon and McCartney are credited as co-writers on this track. I kid you not. And here's the story. So as ever in hip-hop, it's rare that, you know, a hip-hop artist just hires a trumpet player and says, play this riff. The whole culture of the creation of hip-hop comes from crate digging. You know, you dig in the crate of records, you find the vinyl, and you find usually a culturally distant sample, and then you recontextualize it. That is the art form kind of thing. And the sample actually comes from a recording from 1976 by John Holt, and that sample is just looped by Jay-Z. But the original 76 sample was a Beatles cover version by John Holt of the White Album's lovely McCartney song, I Will. Here's a little bit of the 76 recording. I'll just give you the start of the vocal after the trumpet.
Who knows that I have found you will know.
Yes, sunshiny reggae version of I Will. And because of the way music publishing and royalties work, when you sample something, then it's common industry practice for the original songwriter to get a credit on the later song. And if you look up Encore by Jay-Z today, look up the credits online, you'll see that Paul McCartney and John Lennon are co-credited as writers.
There you go. McCartney needs the money, of course, so we're all grateful that was sorted out. I know you've told us this before. Just remind me. So I can use a Lennon McCartney tune tomorrow as long as I credit them and pay them a section of the royalties.
Well, you can't sample it. Sampling requires permission from the owner of the sound recording. Right. But basically, anyone can do a cover version. And when you think about it, how many people on YouTube are doing classic covers? Hundreds of thousands of people every day. You can go to any bar that has live music and hear people playing cover versions. So you don't need permission from the artist or the original songwriter or the record company to do a cover version. We're all allowed to do cover versions. In some territories it's called a compulsory license. But paradoxically, if you take less than the whole song, if you just take a little bit of it and put it into your new song, you have to get permission from the copyright holder. And in the case of sampling, that's two groups of permissions. You have to get the person who owns the sound recording, which is usually the record company, and the songwriters or their publishers have to agree it as well. So there's a lot of admin every time somebody does a sample. Now, obviously, someone megastar like Jay-Z gets all his samples cleared, plays by the rules. We only hear about problems when it's, they didn't ask permission.
So I don't expect you to know the answer to this, but it just fascinates me. Is Paul McCartney, does someone give him a ring when he's at Butlins and say, by the way, Jay-Z wants to use a bit of I Will? So does it go right to the top, or does he have a licensing agent? How does it work?
Well, it depends on the artist. I mean, a lot of artists are very careful about who they allow to use their work. In the UK, we have a thing called moral rights as well, which is, the right to object to derogatory treatment of your work. But yeah, in many cases, in my little corner of the music industry, in forensic musicology, there's often disputes when the samplist really wants to use something but the artist says no, and they make something that sounds a bit like it, and they do that without permission, and then everyone gets in a spat and they call the musicologist to try and sort it out. But yeah, the headlines are, you want to do a cover version, go ahead, you don't need to ask permission. You want to sample somebody's music, you have to get permission.
Strange, isn't it? It is paradoxical, as you say. Just final, sounds like I'm about to make a cover version tomorrow, doesn't it? My new album.
When's the album coming out?
Exactly. Yeah. But if I was to do a cover version of, let's say, a Beatles song, would I owe them a penny if it got to number one?
Your royalties, the publishing part of your royalties, if it was played on the radio or whatever, and I believe you know some people in radio, so pull a few strings. The royalty that is generated from it being on the radio would find its way back to Lennon and McCartney.
Oh.
You would own your recording, you would own your sound recording, but obviously it would still be their song because it's a cover.
Yeah. It's a complicated web, but you're the expert. So just to find right, we're going to our final track now. Actually, 2021. This date's from. It's weird, Joe. I would just have it. I mean, so many people have sent tunes in today from my era. You know, the specials and all that kind of thing. Soft cell using trumpets. And yet you would imagine, this is a bit counterintuitive as well, that somehow the trumpet would go out of favour as music developed. Why would a mod not? What, you know, I don't see Ed Sheeran blowing into a trumpet that often, but yet it's still used. What's the lasting appeal, Joe? Just before we play this last track?
It's very good for top line melody. It cuts through a mix, but not aggressively. It sort of sits on top of the band. And I think a lot of composers think of it as classy, denoting importance. Actually, I've got to say, there was a listener that texted in earlier saying to check out "Would You Go to Bed with Me" by Alchemist and Campbell. So that track was actually a 2023 remix of a track by Touch and Go, a song called "Would You." In fact, I've got a bit of it here. You'll know this trumpet theme.
Would you go to bed with me?
Yes.
So that was "Would You," and it was that sampled of the woman's voice saying the title hook there, and then the trumpet theme comes in. So Touch and Go was the brainchild of composer David Lowe, who is the composer also of the theme for Grand Designs, The One Show, BBC News, Panorama, and Cash in the Attic. And when you think about the One Show theme, it's got a bit of that trumpety goodness to it, hasn't it?
It does. Kicks off with the trumpet, doesn't it? The old One Show.
One.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was. I was really pleased that somebody mentioned that. But yeah, the one that was mentioned by the listener was actually a remix of the 1998 track.
Very good. Well, they're on the ball tonight, Joe. I can tell you that. Right, let's move to our last track then. 2021. Tell us all about it.
Okay, so this is contemporary young jazz. You know, if people think jazz is old people's music, Emma Jean Thackray absolutely disproves it. She's an English musician and DJ, multi-instrumentalist, composer, producer, and vocalist. And she's a northerner. She's from Leeds. So she began playing the cornet in primary school and studied jazz performance at Royal Welsh with the British jazz pianist and composer Keith Tippett, and then took a master's in orchestral jazz composition at Trinity Laban. So she's proper classical and jazz educated. In 2021, she came out with this terrific album, Yellow. And the track we're going to hear is called Golden Green. And the best word I can describe it adjectively is, I would call it ambient trumpet. So listen out for the trumpet sort of buried in a lot of textures, a lot of reverbs. And a little later in the excerpt, you'll also hear Emma singing scat along to the trumpet. So singing the same melody as the trumpet in real time. So yeah, listen out for that. It's lyrically, it's charming. It's a straightforward love songs, but with just some really quirky images. The chorus is gold, pure golden green, smells like biscuits and weed. My baby's gold, pure golden green. So it's like a mantra, of a sort of love mantra, but using these very quirky images.
My baby's gold. Golden green, smells like biscuits and weed. My baby's made of sunshine.
That's kind of lovely and laid back.
It's lovely, isn't it? I hope the eagle-eared listeners spotted the Fender Rhodes there in the background.
Oh, the Fender Rhodes.
So that very soft, lovely, jazzy sound of the Rhodes that we spoke about late last year, I think, in a previous show. So that it's Lyle Barton on Rhodes there. But you know, it's great to see that this, you know, this timeless instrument, this ancient instrument, is, you know, still making new sounds in the 2020s.
Brilliant. Joe, thank you for the journey through the trumpet. Thank you to everyone who's texted the show with loads of suggestions. If with time, I might play a couple of your suggestions before the end of the hour. But before that, we've got work to do. Let's give everyone else a chance to answer the quiz, Joe. Let's have a recap of the quiz. So famous, some of them iconic trumpet tunes. You'll give us the date. We need the artist and the song, and you're going to play them backwards. Is that correct?
Exactly. Excellently summarized. So some of them are pretty short, so listen real carefully and sing the melody backwards in your head if you can. I'll give you the date. So 6 questions, point for the song, point for the artist. Question 1. This is a trumpet riff from 1967. Question 2. This is not a single, but I'll give it you. It's a movie theme from the early 70s. Question 3. This is a very 80s production, but buried amongst those synths, there is a trumpet in this song from 1984. For number 4, this is from 2005. Check out the trumpet. Question 5, and this is a clue. There's not one trumpet on here. There is more than one trumpet. Question 6, this song came out in 2015.
Oh, I mean, I don't know any of the titles, but they're familiar, certainly those latter ones. Is that it, Joe?
That's it. Yeah, that one got a lot of airplay. I think people will. When I play that one back, I'll play it back from a different section from the chorus, and you'll go, "Oh my gosh, did that have a trumpet in it?" Yeah.
Well, look, answers are coming in. If you want to get your answers in, Nick's got the numbers. What are they, Nick?
Yeah, sorry, Tony. Yes, falling asleep there. All the beautiful trumpet noise. The text number's 85058. You can also WhatsApp us 08085 909 693.
Very good. If you want to, we're already getting some answers in. Someone's just sent the movie theme in on its own, which will count, I suppose, as a go. But you need all 6 if you can. Right, answers very shortly. Don't go to bed without knowing the answers. It'll drive you mad. So when Joe is not lecturing, he can often be found acting as an expert witness in cases where artists claim that their work's been copied. Every week we get a little window into that work with a feature we call Soundslike. Loads of people, listeners, look forward to this. Indeed, listeners suggest ideas for Joe to follow up. So we're not suggesting any criminality or illegality or naughtiness, Joe, as we go on these journeys, if any lawyers are listening. So what have we got for our delectation this week?
So we're going back to classic early rock. This is the Kinks in 1964. One of their earliest recordings. People will know it. It is called All Day and All of the Night. Yeah. Here's a little bit of that.
I'm not content to be with you in the daytime. Girl, I want to be with you all of the time. The only time I feel alright is by your side. Girl, I want to be with you all of the time, all day and all of the night. All day and all of the night. All day and all of the night.
So fairly obviously you're listening out for the riff there. So they're in G. Grab my guitar here. So your riff is da 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 da. So it's G, G, F, B flat, G. So it's that riff. and then the various chordal versions of it. And of course, the vocal melody does the same thing. Well, let's move into the key of A. We're now in the key of A, and 1968, this is The Doors.
Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. She's walking down.
So we can hear there's little differences in the riff. So we've got the... then we've got this... so it goes up to this higher section. But the basic riff, and certainly the vocal melody, is exactly the same as All Day and All of the Night. So to quote Ray Davies in an interview, quote, "My publisher wanted to sue." Remember that in the music industry, publishers are the people who look after the songs, the melodies. So, quote, "My publisher wanted to sue. I was unwilling to do that. But I think they somehow cut a deal. I don't know the details. I said, rather than sue them, can you just get them to own up to it? My publisher said, they have owned up to it. That's why we should sue them." And Ray Davies also said, "Jim Morrison admitted it, which to me was the most important thing." And he did say that he liked the track and he liked what they'd done with it. So who knows what deal they came to, but it was all amicable in the end. But the story does not end there. Fast forward to 1981, and the Kinks are just doing their sort of breaking America decade. They had a very good decade in the 70s and 80s in the US. And they came up with this song, which is called Destroyer. This is 1981, the Kinks.
Girl, I want you here with me, but I'm really not as cool as I'd like to be, 'cause there's a red under my bed, and there's a little yellow man in my head, and there's a true blue inside of me that keeps stopping me, touching you, watching you, loving you.
So they're slightly different tempos, they're slightly different keys. Let's put everything into A, and here's just a few short excerpts of each one, and let me just cue them up here. Here's All Day and All of the Night, slightly faster and in A.
I'm not content to be with you in the daytime.
Sorry to make Ray sound a bit squeaky with the pitch shift there. Here's The Doors, same key, same tempo.
Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game.
And here's Destroyer, same tempo, same key.
Girl, I want you here with me, but I'm really not as cool as I'd like to be, 'cause there's a red under my bed, and there's a little yellow man in my head, and there's a...
So fairly obviously, I couldn't resist Tony and Nick. This is the mashup of all three of them. This is a track that I've created, about 58 seconds of music, which I call Hello, I Love Destroying All Day.
I'm not content to be with you in the daytime.
Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. Girl, I want you here with me, but I'm really not as cool as I'd like to be, 'cause hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello,
Girl, I want to be with you all of the time. The only time I feel alright is by your side.
I love you, won't you tell me your name?
All of the time, all day, and all of the night. All day.
Won't you tell me your name? Hello.
Now look, well, so on that, there were, obviously The Doors, is that copying it or nicking it or just subliminally taking it for a start?
Well,
off, Joe?
who knows? Who knows what the creative process held? Was it subliminal? Subliminal is no defense in copyright infringement, as George Harrison learned to his cost, famously in the My Sweet Lord case in '76. But yeah, basically, it's a very, very similar riff. There are lots of riffs like that out there in the world, but that was a very, very close match.
And Destroyer, then, was that just a reboot by the Kinks of their own original tune?
Yes, so Ray Davies is obviously the composer in both cases. So I think there's a bit of music industry admin in the background because there are different publishers. But yeah, composers are, of course, allowed to quote themselves. And he was the songwriter in both cases. Yeah.
Brilliant, as ever, Joe. Right, all that remains to do now is the answers to the quiz.
Okay, let's
Here
do
we
it.
go. This is what blows my brains every week now. Here we go.
So they're very short questions. So I think we've got time to play the questions. I'll give you the question and the answers.
Yeah.
So the very first one was from 1967. Backwards, it sounded like this. That psychedelic sound was the Byrds, the song So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star.
So you want to be a rock and roll star? Then listen now to what I say.
So to the movie theme, maybe when I said movie theme, it gave it away. Here it is backwards. And of course, forwards, it was The Godfather Waltz, Nino Rota, Carlo Savina from 1972, from The Godfather. For number 3, very 80s production, the trumpet sound like this. You'll kick yourself when you hear the chorus. So the band Alphaville and the song Forever Young. Number 4 is right here. It was Shakira featuring Wyclef Jean and Hips Don't Lie from 2005.
I'm on tonight, you know my hips don't lie, and I'm starting to feel it's right. All the attraction.
For number 5, I gave you the clue that it's not one trumpet, it's more than one, it's plural. The song was called Trumpets by Jason Derulo. And finally, number 6, the trumpet sounded like this backwards. And it was the famous mix of OMI's Cheerleader.
Oh, I think that I found myself a cheerleader. She is always right there.
Yeah, who knew there was a trumpet in that, right?
Well, it's the big beast going head-to-head on the quiz tonight because,
well, Neil and Chester and Benny.
Yeah,
you're talking about. Yeah,
they've
well,
gone head-to-head.
It's a score draw.
Yeah, they both got every single one right.
Yeah, well
every
done,
single one. What is it with Neil and Benny? They just ace it every time.
Yeah. And we must be clear.
Genius he is.
You play with the tempos and everything, Joe. So it's not a case of people. I'm not accusing them of cheating, but people can't just suddenly flip it and put it on a Shazam or whatever and do it that way.
No,
it's tamper-proof.
We try and prevent any sort of technical cheating.
Amazing.
But I think they just have really good knowledge of repertoire and really good ears.
Yeah, exactly that. Joe, an absolute pleasure as always.
It's been really fun.
Thank you very much. Lisa in New York says thanks for the fascinating Tuesday segments, and many other people have sent lovely messages tonight as well, Joe. Thanks, mate.
Thanks a lot. See you next week.
Speak to you anon.
Cheers, Joe.